November 22nd, 1987, 9:14 p.m. WGN TV sports anchor. Dan Roan is wrapping the evening news segment, scores scrolling, highlights cued, when the picture cuts, not to black, to a figure in a plastic Max Headroom mask jerking side to side against a sheet of corrugated metal that sways behind him. No audio, just the grinning, stuttering face and the rattling backdrop. 25 seconds, then the anchors are back, joking uneasily about technical difficulties. But across Chicago, in living rooms and bars, viewers are staring at their screens, wondering the same thing. What the hell was that? You're listening to the Unlit Room. Every story in here actually happened. That's the part that should scare you. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. This episode's narration is AI-generated. The research, writing, and editorial decisions behind every story are made with care for accuracy and respect for those involved. Today, the night someone in a mask hijacked 2 Chicago television stations and vanished completely. November 1987. Chicago. The broadcast engineers at WGEN had just won back their signal after 25 seconds of chaos. They'd switched the frequency on their studio to transmitter microwave link, the invisible beam that carried their picture from the newsroom to the antenna atop the Sears Tower. Whoever had overpowered it was gone. But 2 hours later, it happened again. At 11:15 p.m. across town, WTTW, Chicago's PBS station, was airing an episode of Doctor Who to a quiet late-night audience. Families settling in for the night. College students in dorm rooms, insomniacs nursing cups of tea. The Time Lord froze mid-scene, the picture cut to the same masked figure. But this time there was sound. Distorted, sneering speech. A mocking reference to WGN sportscaster Chuck Swirsky. He's a frickin' liberal, delivered in a warped, almost mechanical voice. Snatches of the Clutch Cargo theme song, a low theatrical moan. The figure twisted and rocked against that same corrugated backdrop, the voice rising and falling in pitch, half-intelligible rants punctuated by bursts of static and feedback. Then it got cruder. The figure turned around, bent forward at the waist. A hand holding a fly swatter entered the frame from the right side. A few theatrical swats against a partly exposed backside. The figure gyrated, the voice kept muttering. 90 seconds total, then, snap, back to Doctor Who, mid-sentence, the Doctor continuing as if the universe hadn't just glitched. WTTW's engineers couldn't stop it. Not from the studio. The override was happening at their transmitter site, high atop the John Hancock Center, a location with no staff on duty at that hour. By the time anyone could physically get there, the intruder was already gone. Max Headroom was everywhere in 1987. A fictional computer-generated TV host, actually an actor in prosthetics and a suit, who'd become a Coke spokesperson and a pop culture punchline. The mask was a joke shop knockoff. The humor was juvenile, but the method behind it was something else entirely. Hijacking a broadcast signal isn't a matter of walking into a studio and pressing a button. The picture you see on television starts in a newsroom or control room, then travels, via a focused microwave beam, to a transmitter tower miles away. That's where it's amplified and broadcast to homes across the city. To hijack that signal, you have to overpower the microwave link. You need a transmitter powerful enough to drown out the legitimate signal. You need a directional antenna, a dish or a Yagi array, aimed precisely at the receiving antenna on the transmitter tower. You need to know the exact frequency the station is using. And you need to position yourself in the line of sight between the studio and the tower, close enough that your signal arrives stronger than theirs. This isn't hobbyist radio, this is broadcast engineering. In 1987, that knowledge wasn't available in a library book or a magazine article. You learned it on the job, in a station, working with the equipment day after day. WGEN's engineers escaped the first intrusion in seconds because their microwave link had frequency-agile capability. They could retune the beam mid-transmission and force the hijacker to recalibrate. WTTW didn't have that option. Their transmitter sat unmanned, 700 feet above street level on the Hancock Tower. Their engineers watched from the studio control room, helpless, as the hijacker held the signal for a full minute and a half. Whoever did this didn't just own the equipment. They understood broadcasting intimately. They'd done the math, they'd planned the logistics, and they'd pulled it off twice in one night. Micro Cliffhanger 1. The next morning, the FCC and the FBI opened an investigation. Signal piracy is a federal crime under Title 47 of the U.S. Code. Fines in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Prison time. The recordings were preserved. Thousands of people had seen it live. The case should have been solvable. It wasn't. The next morning, the FCC opened a formal investigation under Title 47 of the U.S. Code, the section that governs unauthorized broadcasts. Signal piracy carries civil fines up to $100,000 per day of violation, plus potential criminal charges, up to a year in federal prison for a first offense, longer for repeat violations. The FBI got involved. This wasn't just a prank. It was a federal crime, captured on tape, witnessed by thousands. Tips came in, theories proliferated, a broadcast industry insider with a grudge against WGEN, a disgruntled ex-employee who knew the transmitter sites, a small group of tech-savvy hobbyists who'd spent months planning the stunt of the decade, underground radio enthusiasts, college engineering students, someone with military signal intelligence training. None of it led anywhere concrete. The microwave link knowledge pointed to someone with professional training, or at least extensive hands-on experience. But no one in Chicago's tight-knit broadcast engineering community ever came forward. No whistleblower, no confession. No equipment was recovered from a rooftop or warehouse. No suspicious transmitter purchases were traced. No motive was confirmed. The intrusion had been juvenile, mocking, absurd, sexually crude. But it had also been expertly executed. And that combination, technical competence plus total anonymity, made it effectively untraceable. For a few weeks, the story circulated. Local news covered it. The Max Headroom characters' actual creators, the British team behind the original TV show, expressed bewilderment and a little annoyance that their satirical AI character had been turned into the face of a federal crime. Then the headlines moved on. The case stayed open, but the leads dried up. Years passed, decades passed. Online forums picked it apart. Journalists revisited it. Amateur sleuths proposed theories. Reddit threads dissected every frame of the recordings. None of it stuck. There are four main theories about who pulled this off. The first, a broadcast industry insider. Someone who worked at a station, maybe even one of the two that got hit, and knew the microwave paths, the frequencies, the blind spots in Chicago's transmitter network. The technical sophistication supports this. But if it was an insider, no one in that small professional community ever broke ranks. No deathbed confession. No leaked rumor that gained traction. The second, a group of tech-savvy hobbyists, ham radio enthusiasts, electronics tinkerers, maybe college students with access to a university's engineering lab. The juvenile tone of the content, the Max Headroom mask, the fly swatter, the sneering voice, fits this profile. But the barrier to entry in 1987 was steep. The equipment wasn't something you could assemble in a dorm room. And a group means more people to keep a secret. Groups talk. The third, a disgruntled ex-employee targeting WGEN specifically. The intrusion's references to WGEN personalities, the choice to hit that station first, it suggests familiarity, maybe even a grudge. But if it was personal, why WTTW 2 hours later? Why PBS? The pattern doesn't quite fit. The fourth, a coordinated small team with assigned roles. One person on the transmitter, one handling the video feed, one driving or providing lookout. 2 stations in one night suggests planning, logistics, division of labor. But again, more people means more risk. Someone talks eventually. Someone brags, someone feels guilty, someone gets caught doing something else and trades information. 4 theories, all plausible, none proven. The evidence accounts for each of them, but it doesn't eliminate any of them either. Here's the thing about pulling off a stunt like that in 1987. You couldn't just buy the equipment online, you couldn't look up broadcast frequencies on a forum. The knowledge required, the precise aiming of a high-powered microwave signal at a transmitter tower, the timing, the frequency coordination wasn't accessible to casual pranksters. Whoever hijacked WGEN and WTTW that night had to know what they were doing. They had to own serious hardware. They had to understand the vulnerabilities in Chicago's broadcast infrastructure well enough to exploit them twice in one night, on two different stations, from two different locations. The mask was a joke, the method was professional, and they walked away clean. Here's what makes the silence so striking. This wasn't a perfect crime in the traditional sense. The hijackers left evidence everywhere. Video recordings on two stations, broadcast logs with precise timestamps, signal strength readings that could theoretically triangulate transmission locations, witness reports from anyone who might have seen unusual activity near rooftops or transmission paths that night. And yet, nothing. No equipment ever surfaced in a pawn shop or a storage unit auction. No participant ever got drunk at a reunion and let something slip. No journalist ever found a credible source willing to talk, even anonymously, even decades later when the statute of limitations had expired. To this day, the Max Headroom incident remains one of the most famous unsolved broadcast intrusions in American history. Not because of what was shown. The content was forgettable, juvenile, deliberately absurd. But because of what it represented. Someone had seized control of the public airwaves, broadcast themselves into thousands of homes, defeated professional engineers and federal investigators, and then walked away without leaving a single usable thread to pull. The recordings still exist. You can watch them online, the grinning mask, the swaying corrugated backdrop, the garbled, mocking speech. It's surreal, absurd, and deeply unsettling. Not because of what the figure said, but because of the silence that followed. No arrests, no confessions, no leaks. Not in 1988, not in 1995, not in 2010 when the internet made anonymity harder and cold case communities dug into everything. Just a plastic mask and a question that's been hanging in the air for nearly 40 years. Who were they? And how did they get away with it? There's something unnerving about realizing that the systems we trust, the ones that feel monolithic and untouchable, can be breached by someone smart enough and patient enough to understand them. The airwaves aren't locked, they're just difficult to access. And difficulty isn't the same as security. The Max Headroom hijacking proved that. On one November night in 1987, someone with the right knowledge and the right equipment turned two of Chicago's television stations into their own private channel. And then they disappeared into the city, into the years, into history, carrying the answer with them. Maybe they're still out there. Maybe they're watching this. Maybe they told someone once, late at night, after a few drinks, and swore them to secrecy. Or maybe they took it to the grave. Either way, the silence is the story. If this one kept you up tonight, good. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Follow the Unlit Room wherever you listen. Tell a friend who can't sleep. Full story on the main channel. Follow if you're wide awake. That was the Unlit Room. See you in the dark.